I think let's also just like take some context about why the gastronomy first approach is so successful for media. And obviously, Gen Z, which is the youngest purchasing generation right now, and they're going to become the biggest generation when it comes to purchasing power. They're quite homogenous if you think about them across the world. They're more homogenous than millennials in terms of their buying habits and their tastes and trends, and way more so than the baby boomers, who are not at all homogenous depending on where they're located. And the Gen Zers are often called, there was a report that came out that called them the no meat, no car, no alcohol generation. So, and they spend, a recent report from this year just showed that they spend the most amount on food than any other generation that we've ever known. So it's Beyond Meat and Impossible Foods did, and Oatly as well. And I think it's really important to call all of these brands out because they pioneered a story that was so sexy that every media company in the world wants to be writing about it. And suddenly everybody wanted to know more about this topic. I mean, before then, we didn't even really have an umbrella term, but then alt protein started to take over, and it was, the right time. The media wants to report on what's sexy and what people want to read because the media wants to get hits and wants to get traffic. And you can see, I look at our traffic and search terms, very closely, and you can see that in 2019, the curve goes up. Suddenly, everything alt protein is important. And in fact, we've built a global brand on the back of that because before we were much more Asia sustainability. And then because we had cornered this market, suddenly everybody's reading Green Queen. I mean, suddenly investors are reading Green Queen because suddenly it's the hottest opportunity in the world. This was not the case. I mean, the FT, for Christ's sakes, is writing huge reports on alternative proteins. The FT, I mean, this is a signal to the market that it's completely changed. And that's because, hello, the money's there. And why is the money there? Because the demand is there. So even in our coverage, right, it's not enough now to just say, hey, another brand has launched a plant-based meat range. We've heard that. We know that's happening all the time. Now there's got to be something else to the story. The ingredients, the labeling, the nutrition, the way it's made, the production. And this is true in the plant-based space. The competition has started to heat up. So I'm going to be honest with you. You're going to need budget. You're going to need absolutely flawless marketing and comms. And so for me, what I'm going to say is if you're in the plant-based space and you don't have in-house marketing, in-house comms, I mean, look at Andre. He's got, some of the best in the business in-house. You're not going to stand out. What is needed in the space and what is needed is a lot more consultants and experts who are going to help brands elevate how they communicate and how they go to market, exactly what we're talking about today. And it's not enough for the fermentation space. That's harder because the technology is very not at all understood by the end consumer. And so there, we need to get better in our reporting, deeper, ask more questions about the IP and the production, their press, their comms, their marketing. It's all in-house. They invest in the talent. And even if you look at somebody like Green Monday, they do the same. It's all in-house. You've got to be in-house. You've got to control your story.
Understanding who are our consumers, and Sonalie brilliantly mentioned about Gen Z's and millennials' characteristics. They are looking for experiences. They are looking for innovation. They are looking for non-apologetic experiences. They're looking for what's cool, what's best, what's trendy, what's tasty, what's Instagrammable. Not one single word of what I said has anything to do with being compromising, with being tasteless, with being nothing like that. It's the opposite. It's not about attacking the past or saying that something is bad or negative. It's about offering a better future. So understanding that angle of consumers, and then understanding people like Chef Adam, when we apply our go-to-market strategy, our branding, our tools, our partnerships, like partnering with Ynyr and the classic plant foods guys, it's not choosing, it's choosing the best. It's really choosing the best partners, the best network, people who are looking forward and bringing the new trends and challenging the status quo. That's what we do, and that's what it relates across the board in every single parameter. The narrative, the communication must be ours. Here, usually retail in the countries, you have 80% of the market consolidated in 2 or 3 players. It doesn't matter if you're in Singapore, in Germany, in Australia, or even that's basically the case everywhere. So it's a consolidated space in which you're fighting for shelf, but it's more mature, less fragmented, and more direct. So you will talk to the buyer, negotiate the space, and then you spend a hell lot of money for the consumers to go hopefully buy your product off the shelf. But there is a guidebook, right? There is a way. The challenge when it comes to, and what makes it so expensive and also in my view so powerful for the food services space, is that there's no guidebook. You really need to understand yet, right? It's not, it hasn't been cracked yet, but you really need to understanding that who are you dealing with in each step of the chain? What will make classic fine foods guys happier? What is a distribution business in the food services? What will make chefs like Chef Adam and restaurateurs happier, right? So it's not about only selling, understanding each one of those elements in the value chain, which is much longer, much more complex, and much more fragmented than it is in the retail world. It's fundamental for the gastronomy first. And yes, it can be pretty expensive because of that challenge of fragmentation. And then there's also another step at last, but that's not less important at all, is how do you then talk to your consumers and incentivize them to go into restaurants and trying the food and ordering more, which should then make Chef Adam happy, which should then make classic fine foods happy. And in turn, that would be our sales. So gastronomy first, in my view, it's a very powerful approach in the go-to-market. It's not easy. If it was easy, most of the brands would have done. It takes patience. You don't feel that spike in revenue as you do when you list the 5,000 Edeka retail in Germany, or if you take like 260 outlets here in Singapore for the national retail chain. However, you will build a very consistent, good quality revenue that would, in the long term, probably mean better returns if you do it right. For that, you need to have a product that behaves well. You need to have a partner that delivers. You need to have a brand that can attract consumers and be able to communicate that across, and that's not easy.
Conversation has totally changed from us, from really having to push a lot at the beginning 3 years ago, which, let's be right, in the grand scheme of things, 3 years is nothing. Look how things have developed in such a short space of time. Quality is absolutely number one for us at Classic Fine Foods and for the brands that we work with. That's where we start. We start talking about quality of product, and hopefully that works. Some customers, they're not interested in this, right? They are just, no, absolutely not. Alternative protein, not for me, not interested. Fine, okay, I hear you, chef. Thanks very much for the input, but are your consumers interested in this? The market is moving on. The market is evolving. Your consumer is very different now, chef, to who it was 5 years ago. And importantly, it'll be very different in 5 years on from this. This lighthouse approach works extremely well for us, and we like to launch these brands in our lighthouse and in our cities and our markets that are going to have the biggest amount of impact. Impossible is a good example of this. Tyndall, we have put together with Tyndall and many of the brands an approach to launching the product, which can easily be then copied and pasted through other markets, because if it works in a lighthouse markets, it will work in other markets. So we try to use that approach wherever we possibly can, because it brings faster results and scalable products.
Well, so our plant-based sales in normal times, so not during COVID and not during lockdown, are probably at least, also towards later in the week, close to the weekends, probably close to around 40% of the sales. If I think the product is really good, I'll find space for it. We'll find a way to work it.
In terms of products or brands, I think we can first of all say that it is a good approach for emergent brands, as they are not known on the market and they need to build reputation and trust with the consumers, first of all. And of course, it can also it can also be used for different kind of products, right? So you could think about beverages, for example, where you have new ways of alcoholic or non-alcoholic drinks that you use, for example, with bartenders, and they mix it into cocktails and make a unique flavor with it. And so there is room, from my perspective, for different kinds of products as well. The important thing here is that it needs to give room to the expert in order to work with it. And that is a very important element. Otherwise, it's just not interesting to the chef or to the expert. And so gives them some room to add their signature.
If not, the ones that would have done it would be the Nestles of the world, which are great companies, but they were not the ones who made it sexy. They were not the ones who became, the new big boys. And that's made, in our view, by identifying exactly what our consumer wants, what our customer wants, and making sure you address a market need that no one has addressed in the right way, with the right product, with the right go-to-market strategy.
Happy to see the retail. I think it's brilliant. If you can buy things at home for home, it's great. I think the more the merrier. Certainly, unless you have an amazing kitchen at home, there's only certain things you can do anyway. So people are always still going to want to go out to a restaurant to get a meal prepared for them.
Hotels are starting to wake up to it, really, and it's taken, I say, a little bit of time for them to get there. But we are starting to see positions within hotels that are things along the lines of group manager for alternative, group chef for alternative protein for X hotel group, and they are now responsible for putting together a portfolio of products which are all around plant-based, all around alternative protein, which will eventually start to trickle into fine dining, into other areas of the hotel.